Okay, I think we can get going. So, good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to everyone. And thank you all for joining, taking your time, the many for this weekend. And thank you all for joining this. So, this is our first webinar. So, there are a few watching in YouTube, and then they'll be watching YouTube later. So, hi everyone. So, once again, thank you all for joining and then taking your time. So, let me give a quick intro about our the very first speaker of our webinar for the Brain community. So, which is none other than the Alex Alexander or Alex. So, Alex has over 2 decades of experience in CIO, CTO roles across consumer retail, fashion and luxury, retail banking, airlines, and marketplaces. So, Alex has worked with world-renowned brands such as Walmart, Yoox, Net-A-Porter, Emirates Group, and Adventa Spain. So now pioneering AI-enabled technology innovation. So having led several large-scale digital transformations across 3 continents, Alex returned to Italy in September 2023 to establish an innovative AI startup. So his team at Zoots developed Interview X, an AI-powered talent screening and interviewing platform designed to revolutionize the way businesses search for and hire technology talent. So Mr. Alex is a great storyteller, and then who worked with him in Emirates and other companies you know about him. He's an amazing leader and a great person to know and work with. So once again, I take this great opportunity to thank all behalf of all our Brain community members. Alex, thank you so much for taking your time, and then we owe to you, and we are here to super excited to listen from you, your experience. Thanks, Alex, and over to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for humbled your amazing intro. So first of all, I want to say good morning or good evening, whichever time zone you're in, and it's such an honor and privilege that some of you have joined different time zones. So thank you. It's a pleasure of mine to be here. As Eric mentioned, I'm a former CTO, but now I'm a startup founder, is an AI tech startup founder. So in some ways, from the earlier start that I've had in 2023, we've leveraged AI. So we've made learned, we made mistakes, we learned things. So if you like, as a practitioner experience, because it's our livelihood, it's our business that depends on how AI works, and we mainly generally work with generative AI, but of course, sometimes we work with traditional AI as well. And I will explain all of that in a moment. But I think the key thing is that there is so much information about AI. So whether you are academia, whether you're an expert in AI already, or whether you're just getting into AI, there is tons of information. And of course, sometimes you don't know whether that information is something that you need to follow or not. So I hope what I can do in this session as the CEO of an AI company, I can distill some of that information and also share our own experiences as how we have found AI. So let me start by going back in time. And I have picked this example of Henry Ford because Henry Ford's invention of automobile transformed mobility 100 years ago. It was a disruptive change without a doubt, and it transformed industries and daily lives. And in fact, our lives are also still evolving with the evolution of next phase of automobiles. But we are also today witnessing a similar leap with AI. Specifically, I'm referring to generative AI. It's transforming productivity across all industries, whether we mention healthcare, whether we mention retail, airlines, journalism, marketing, and many, many others. Some of those we will be talking about. But generative AI is causing a paradigm shift that is touching every aspect of our lives. So as the car changed how we live and work, AI is driving efficiency and productivity in how businesses operate and how individuals also get on with their day-to-day lives. So my really key message from this slide is that AI is not a luxury, but a necessity. So let's move on to the next slide. And here is some stats that you all remember this early days when ChatGPT came to light. So 1 million users in November 2022 within 5 days. So everybody got to use it. I was one of those, and I'm sure many of you would have started using it and being curious about what this is going to do. But everybody got a taste of it. But when you put it into context, it took Netflix 2.5 years to get to the same number of users. And of course, now we are seeing how it's transforming various industries. Forbes, in fact, predict a 500% increase in the AI market in the next 3 years. So in their view, we are entering an exponential growth phase. And I tend to agree with it. I mean, whether we can debate whether it is 500% or not, but it is going to be an exponential growth. And the challenge is, as it was with 100 years ago, if you ask customers what they really want from generative AI, they're not going to be able to answer you in the same way that if Henry Ford had asked the customers what they wanted, they would have just asked for faster horses. So it's really important that as we think about AI, we think about solving business problems and solving them with differentiations, because of course we know there are going to be many solutions using these wonderful tools that are available, and of course they're getting better every day. In fact, there is a famous saying that AI, or generative AI, is at its worst today, because every day is going to get better. And if it is at its worst today, can you imagine how much better that's going to become? So before we dive down into its benefit, let's just actually talk about, you can see my slides still, Arak? You can see that? Okay, fantastic.
Yes, Alex.
Yeah.
All good, all good.
Yeah, so let's just talk quickly about the differences. I mean, generative AI, as you know, excels in creating diverse content. And when we talk about content, we're talking about images, videos, text, music. So as you can already see, this is going to directly impact those industries that use those content, whether it is the art industry, content creators, and of course, when we're talking about data, also could impact, and it is impacting medical science and many other industries. So in my view, generative AI is one of those technologies which is transformative. It's not incremental innovation. And we saw the impact of that, obviously, back in November 2022. Of course, traditional AI uses machine learning algorithm to analyze data for tasks such as market predictions and so on. So both for me are important, and some industries such as finance and healthcare are also heavily reliant on traditional AI and machine learning. So I think it's important that they work in tandem with each other, and we don't just use one at the exclusion of others. So the key question is AI adoption going to accelerate or not? So let's have this discussion. So, in my career across many industries and different geographies, as Arak mentioned, I've worked in 3 continents across 7 countries. There is a common ask from my bosses, whether that's CEO, doesn't matter, because they want improved speed to market. They want to go faster because they want to innovate. They want better quality. And of course, they always want that at reduced cost. And of course, they want to grow a customer base, whether they are in a B2B business or a B2C business. That's a common ask across every industry that I've been to in my entire career. But then when you ask a CFO will always translate this into increase in EBITDA and improving revenue per employee. CFOs look at employees and people that work in an organization as an asset. So they always want to make sure that they get more out of those assets. And another story that I can tell you that often, when I go to an organization, it's always those things, metrics, whether you look at the CEO metrics of speed, quality, cost, and customers, or the CFO metrics that get translated are almost one and the same thing, but gets translated, is that there's been obviously a low level of productivity. And the aim and the goal is we want to have higher level of productivity. That is always the case, because nobody's going to say, well, I'm going to try to be less productive next year. So it's always about better, higher productivity. We can also talk about efficiency as well, because efficiency is also a language that has been used a lot in the past, and there are distinctive differences between efficiency and productivity. So I'm sorry that this next slide is a little bit busy, but let me just explain that to you. So in throughout my career, let's say 15 years ago, usually those asks from CEOs and CFOs translated into really ambitious targets of improving some of those KPIs by, between 7 to 10%. And that would have been a fantastic achievements if you could you can move some of those metrics that I showed you before by between 7 to 10%. And it was quite unusual to get to 10%, but 7 would get you really success stories. But then cloud came, and then as automation came with robotic process automation and many other technologies around that time. And that moved up. The goals went up to maybe 10% was not good enough, and it needed to be higher, and maybe that went up to 15%. And at some point, some organizations aimed for and even achieved 30% improvement in productivity in certain industries by moving some of those metrics. But today's goal is none of that. Today's goal is 50%, because there is the power of AI to achieve that. And I certainly can say that power is there to achieve 50%, but also the CEOs and CFOs expect that as well. Why? Because the current economic situation is such that they need to turn the dial, because they cannot operate any other way. But this is where the difference comes between the past and the present. And again, I'm telling you also my own story, because in the past, when I was asked to improve some of those metrics, I was given efficiency targets. So we must become more efficient, Alex, by this percentage or that percentage, but not productivity. And in the majority of the cases, technology is measured by efficiency, not productivity. So for example, efficiency is more easily measured using metrics such as cost and time savings, where productivity covers a far broader spectrum of metrics and is far more complex to measure. So there are two things in my view which are different. One is that expectation and possibility to achieve greater shift in some of those metrics, whatever those metrics are. I use some of the examples. It's now gone up to 50%. The second thing is the old language of 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, of saying, okay, we want to become more efficient, is now changed to become more productive. And productivity is a much more holistic measure, which only AI can provide. So these are the two things I wanted to highlight in this slide. But the key question is, for the CEOs, CFOs, and the rest of the teams in any organization, is that, okay, how do we achieve that? How do we adapt to this change? And I think for me, I've sort of titled this slide as my thoughts and also my predictions. And my thoughts are that it has to be about augmented roles. I'm not a believer that AI is going to take all jobs away and and effectively we're just going to live by AI. Actually, I believe in hybrid human AI intelligence. And this will allow for scale productivity, not just higher efficiency. And I think that hybrid element, we can also experience that because we've all become more productive in what we do because we use various models such as ChatGPT to do our day-to-day tasks, and we become more efficient. But can you imagine the power of some of those models in some of the other industries such as medical diagnosis? So the next point that I want to mention here is that, of course, some industries tomorrow are not going to be there. So some of them are going to be completely transformed and they're not going to look like what they are today. And of course, for many companies, let's say private equities, hedge funds, and investors, they need to think about, okay, where do they invest? Which companies do they invest? Do they invest in a company that is going to disappear? Of course not. Do they invest in a company that is going to be transformed, enabled by AI? So, investors also need to be, and I mean, us as individuals are also investors because obviously we put our faith into companies. We need to be aware of the pitfalls of some of those industries are going to be so impacted that they're not going to be there in the same way and fashion. So I've predicted obviously some of the industries that are going to disappear in terms of marketing, copy, stock image firms, corporate photographers, and voice transcriptions. I mean, I went to an event a few months ago, and they were in this exhibition, they were offering translation services. And of course, what would anybody need a translation service? Because AI can do that for you at a fraction of the second. So some of those industries, they may not realize that now, but they're not going to be there. And some of them are not going to be there in a matter of months, not even years. There are some industries that are going to go through radical changes. Of course, journalism we've talked about, but journalism, in my view, it will transform as opposed to it disappears. And that's where the hybrid human AI intelligence will come into play. Of course, medical diagnostics is another one that it's already changing. And there are sort of models, and many of you have seen some examples that AI can correctly predict, diseases in 80% of the cases in minutes. And of course, no human can do that. But of course, humans working with AI will be able to do that. I'm going to tell you another story. And again, one thing that I didn't mention at the beginning is that I'm also do podcasting with my co-host, and we interview business leaders, technology leaders, and one of the interesting interviews that we did was for AI health expert, one of the top world AI health experts, and he told us a story in a hospital that it was a Friday, and the nurse checked the patient, the doctor checked the patient, everything looked fine. But that evening, that Friday night, AI signaled to the doctor that something serious was going to happen to that patient because it predicted something. So the doctor did drive to hospital and check the patient, and the early examination highlighted nothing, highlighted the same things that the previous test has shown. But he examined further and he noticed a blood clot that if that had not been seen to that night, the patient would not have been alive by Monday morning. So again, it's that prediction, the power, and this is a real story from a practitioner in AI and health, and it makes you realize the power of AI that normal human expertise cannot see it. But again, this was human with AI working in partnership, and the doctor used the AI information to dig a bit deeper and realize that yes, something was going to happen and prevented that patient dying. But it's not just industries that are mentioned. Even in farming, picking fruit, ripe fruit at the right time, at scale, is also going to be done by AI. In fact, it's already being done by AI. So there are many examples that industries that we know, whether they are very high profile industries such as healthcare, or maybe less high profile such as farming, they're also going to be impacted as well. But let me just in the next few slides, I'm just going to go through a few examples of use of AI. So bear with me, please. So Stable Diffusion and sort of generative AI, it's many use cases, from controlling the spread of disease to financial forecasting to marketing and advertising, and it is widely used already, and you may have come across this as well. The next one I'm going to play this video, so I hope that you can see this, and that's how AI is changing the fashion world. And I spent about 4 years in the fashion industry as well. And for me, this is incredible about how AI is going to change that. So I'm assuming that you could hear the sound as well as the, okay, great. So this is another example. Again, as part of the podcast, we interviewed the chief digital officer of Sephora, and he talked about how they're using AI for facial recognition, and also how the different skin tones, so that they can recommend different types of makeup and beauty. So I'll try to lower the sound because this one is quite loud. So you get a picture of that, and let me just I just need to move forward. Okay, the next one is an example of movies and how AI is used for dubbing purposes, so that they can be translated into different languages. And watch this, one of my favorite movies.
Wenn du irgendetwas brauchst, so habe ich hier. Echo de menos.
Is Tom Hanks multilingual?
Yeah, so of course Tom Hanks is not multilingual, but again, this is the power of AI. And again, this is another example of, again, one of my previous employers, Walmart, how they're using it for supply chain optimization, because of course with any retailer, their inventory is the most important part of where the inventory is. So that reduces the shipping costs, saves CO2. So this is an important one.
Meet Walmart's AlphaBot. This robot spends all day picking items for online orders at the company's market fulfillment centers. And it's key to speeding up Walmart's delivery. 95% of its orders can be picked in under 12 minutes. In the shipping war against Amazon and Target, Walmart is leaning into the cutting edge, investing in drone delivery and automated fulfillment centers.
By 2025, 65% of our stores will be serviced by automation.
Here's how the country's biggest retailer is going high-tech to deliver on more than just speed.
So again, it gives you a sense. Everybody is looking at AI for automation of some of the activities that they're doing. And of course, those automations adds value to the business. It also adds value to the customer, because the customer can, get what they are looking for much quicker, much more efficiently, with less errors and with more precision. So again, power of AI, again, we saw another use case. And this is another simple use case which shows how documents can be generated. So in this case, an example of a policy document using a model that we have actually developed. But you can see its uses in legal industry, in procurement industry, any industry that actually has a need for documents. And of course, all of those industries use lots of documents. Public sector, lots of documents, policy documents that needs to be written. And again, you can see how they, a simple model, and this is a very simple model that only took a few hours to write, can actually do things that normally for human beings that takes longer. Of course, again, hybrid human AI intelligence comes into play as well, because again, ultimately, humans need to ensure that they're provided the right context for the document generation, and actually they can check it as well. Let's now look at public sector. So again, I'm assuming that you can still see my slides. Yeah. Okay, fantastic. We went through many examples in the private sector and how it's changing the different industries, and of course, ultimately benefiting customers. But governments are also investing in AI and using it to transform some of the public services. I mentioned some examples. I'm sure there are hundreds of more examples that are coming up. But for example, Estonia have implemented AI-powered citizen services, which allows for faster administrative processes. There are AI-powered chatbots to really interact with customers and effectively do some of the government services faster, so saving both time and resources. Singapore is again another example. The focus on public safety and predictive policing and use it for the smart city applications that they have, where AI systems can really improve the infrastructure in real time and in terms of operation of that infrastructure from the traffic and also policing point of view. China does similar things with AI, with facial recognitions for public safety, but of course, it also raises some privacy concerns that we are also aware of as well. But, you know, having gone through the transformation opportunities for both private sector and public sector, but how do we do it? You know, how does an organization that maybe are using AI in an ad hoc and tactical basis, or maybe they're not using AI at all, how do they go about using AI? Again, a busy slide, but let me just explain that. For me, and again, this is our own experience as well, and also part of some of the advice that we give to other companies that ask us, but how do you do that? How did you go about that? I mean, the first step for me is the foundational step to assess whether an organization is ready for AI. You know, we're looking at even how they're operating models, how the workforce is structured. So all of those things, foundations, aspects, is important. Of course, culture is also important as well. And you may say, well, what's culture got to do with AI? It's got everything to do with AI. Because the culture of experimentation is a key part of the using AI, because AI is not about kicking off a project that is going to last 12 and 18 months, because I can assure you during that 12 and 18 months, AI will enhance so much that more than 50 to 80% of the code that you would have been written, it will no longer be necessary. So AI is also about the agile mindset. It's about the culture of you try, you fail. When you try again, you learn from your failures. So culture is very important as well in AI. And the second step is that often when we organization ask us, well, how did you do that, or they ask us for advice, we go through the foundational assessment. And even that foundational assessment is not done just with humans. So, of course, those of us that do these assessments are all experts, from various industries and experts in AI. But we also have AI doing the assessment. So we've trained those AI models that either they're experts in retail, experts in airlines, or experts in whatever. We provided them with some generic industry data. So when they listen to a conversation, they're also able to analyze that against that generic data. And then together with the human expertise, we can then analyze the foundational capabilities of that organization and make recommendations to say, and let's now go back to that CEO and the CFO slide, we could then say, well, actually, these functions of your organizations can improve by 10%, 20%, 30%, or 50%. So, but that only comes after that initial assessment. Then obviously, the next questions that organizations ask is, well, okay, how do we get to that 30% and 40% in this function? Let's say it could be marketing function, it could be recruitment function, it could be commercial function, whatever it may be. Is that my key recommendation is just do a proof of concept and do not go for a full build for the reasons that I mentioned, because the moment that you start this large project, that you can be sure that between 50% to 80% of what you're going to develop will not be required, just because of AI is moving at such a fast pace. And we have experienced that ourselves, both in terms of the products that we have developed, from the early estimates of 12 and 18 months to develop it, to actual realities of 6 or 7 months. So we've experienced that. So of course, if you had embarked on that large project without first experimenting, we would have wasted a lot of time and effort. And when you think about that for large organizations, that is the right mindset. So agile, a handful of sprints to just do a POC, so that business can see what is possible before you go to the third step of innovating and growing the business. And this is where AI can be applied extensively across the whole organization, and will be connected. So in phase 2, these proof of concepts would be as siloed solution. Some may be connected, but not connected across the whole organization. And the third phase is whether it is embedded across the entire organizations. And to get that, what is important that I go back to what I said earlier, you need to have an AI operating model, and you need to have an AI workforce strategy. Because as it is even in our example, and we are a small startup, we have more AI employees than human employees. But it was more by needs and necessity than anything else that we stumbled across this opportunity for us to automate almost everything that we do in our small company, to build agents that can do specific tasks, whether it's helping with testing, whether it's helping with note taking. I don't go to a meeting without my note taker. But what I intend to do from next month, that I will send my avatar to certain meetings which are routine meetings, where I may just have to explain a product. So I don't go to those meetings myself from next month. I will send my avatar to those meetings. Of course, meetings that involves me, I will have to go to those myself. But there are meetings that are just about maybe a demo, maybe just explaining the product, maybe a routine activity talking about the business plan. Of course, my avatar will be trained to do that very simply, and I will not go to those meetings. So that AI mindset needs to be part of your AI operating model. And it also means that your workforce strategy would be different as well, because you may not need humans for certain roles that could be done by AI. And also it means that you may need some new roles that you didn't think about because you didn't have that AI mindset. So these are very, very important concepts that I want to make sure that is understood, because we have seen it ourselves. And of course, we are practitioners because we have to survive based on what we do in terms of using AI employees more so than human employees. Let me move to the next slide, because I talked about workforce strategy. AI will transform that for sure. And of course, there will be some job displacements, without a doubt. We have already seen this, but there will also be job transformations. I can guarantee you those that learn about AI can actually use AI will be served by AI, because they will have more exciting roles to do because of the transformation of the roles. And in fact, the World Economic Forum predicts that 85 million jobs will be displaced next year, but 97 million new jobs will be created. So more jobs will be created, but some of those jobs will be by the same people, as long as they will be displaced, as long as they've been trained. And of course, training and upskilling is something that I want to come to. It's super important for every organization, every individual. So it is clear, and we have seen those metrics in the past, but more so now with AI. Every job will require digital proficiency, but more so with AI, because if you cannot use your AI in your AI tools in your job, then you're not going to be as productive. Again, going back to the productivity importance. But how do we do that? Because every company and every government has a role to play. So, for example, I can mention a few examples in different industry. For example, Siemens, a global industry leader, is retaining his workforce by retraining them, because they want to integrate AI into the daily operations. But rather than losing the people, they're training them to operate with those AI tools that are embedding across their whole operations. So there is greater motivation. There is a greater, focus on training, and it also means that they become more productive, because the humans will have the domain knowledge of the business, but of course they'll be trained on how to use AI. Another example that I could mention is Amazon. Using AI-driven robots. And of course, we saw the Walmart example as well, the fierce competitors. So they both are using robots in the warehouses, optimizing logistics, optimizing delivery. Ultimately, the customers are going to be the beneficiary of that. So what they're trying to do is to reducing the human intervention in some of the activities. Whether it is those logistic aspects or other operational aspects. But there are also other skilled jobs will be created, because somebody needs to maintain those robots. Somebody needs to manage those systems. So it's not just all about displacement. It's also about shifting the roles. And some of the countries that are putting a lot of investment into trainings, and they do this obviously sometimes together with the private sectors, for example, France, have launched several national initiatives investing in digital training programs to help workers transition to AI-powered world. Germany have got this program called Industry 4.0. Of course, I live in Europe, so I quite closely follow the European countries in terms of what they do, and also further afield from Europe, Japan has a Society 5.0. So Germany has got Industry 4.0. Japan has got Society 5.0. Again, they're trying to create this super smart society where AI and robotics enhance all sectors of life. And when Japanese get on with something, they make a really good job of it. Again, in Singapore, they are looking at a program called Skills Future. We're not only training the citizens to take courses in AI, machine learning, and data, but actually getting them to use it as well. And there are also other examples like Canada with their AI strategy, South Korea with a national strategy that they've got with the aim of training 100,000 of their citizens in AI and to create AI specialist roles by 2025. So there are many initiatives, and I'm sure wherever you live, you can also reference many of those initiatives as well. So this slide again looks busy, but let me just explain that. I want to go back to what I said before, that AI adoption and successful AI adoption is all about adaptability, is about the learning mindset, and is about culture. And of course, culture creates that, encourages those learning mindset and adaptability. So things such as emotional intelligence, problem solving and creativity, ethical judgments are super important when it comes to AI. So for me, those skills are paramount before you even talk about technical skills, data skills. So ethical concerns about data privacy, bias in decision making are super important. And of course, they are relevant to how we deploy some of our AI solutions. So ethical judgment being part of learning and also part of large language model development, it leads to better solutions. And of course, if you don't do that, obviously, if your culture and your organization doesn't have those guardrails, you end up with a situation such as Amazon, where they had a tool, a recruiting tool that was biased against women. Of course, they don't use that tool anymore, but you've heard those stories that if you don't apply those ethical processes, you end up with a bad product. And of course, we know that AI can be used very well in an unbiased way in hiring and recruitment. But of course, obviously, we are in the business of finding the right talent as well. So we know that it can be done, but there are also bad examples of it. So I would say the first thing where I start with is that adaptability and learning mindset. The second thing is, of course, is important, to be ready for now and the future. I cannot say just the future because obviously AI is here now. You do need to have some understanding of the technology that underpins AI. So data foundations. You need to understand that because AI is fed by data. So if you don't understand the foundations of data and data privacy, GDPR aspects, then you have a limitation. So I think it's important that if you're talking to anybody that is new to and want to enter AI, I would say these are the basic information that they need to have, and they need to gather that knowledge. Then some knowledge of AI foundational models are important as well. I'm not saying that everybody needs to be an expert in order to even make a start in AI, but basic differences between general LLMs to specialized LLMs to domain LLMs and multimodal LLMs is important. So if you're looking at text, videos and multiple sources, the multimodal may be the best approach for you. If you're looking at something that's very specific to a domain, so for example, it could be, again, going back to my retail background, if it's specific to a retail background, retail domain, you may want to use some domain-specific LLMs to save you training the models, because obviously training is the most important part of using these LLMs. And in fact, I was speaking to a former colleague from Walmart only a couple of days ago, and the product that they're developing in the retail sector is using domain-specific LLMs. And of course, if they'd started with the general LLMs or even a specialized LLMs, they would have had far more training to do than domain-specific LLMs. They don't need to use multimodal. So those, decisions about what to use just requires a basic understanding of what these different models are. And of course, most of the ones that I've mentioned here are transformative models, but there could be other models as well. But that basic understanding. So in all of this, the most important one is the top one, adaptability and learning mindset. Because if you've got that, then you learn the basic understanding of the data and technology and AI foundational model. So I'm going to end this slide by saying that AI is not just about technology, but it's about psychology. And that goes back to my point about adaptability as well. And again, I give you, a couple of examples in my own experience that when we developed our application and we were thinking about, okay, how do users use this? Some of my team said, okay, well, we just, build help as we do in any website or any app. And I stopped and thought, I said, but we are not any app. We are an AI app. So why do we need to build, drop-down menu for help and so on? Because that's the conventional model. So that, to cut the long story short, that led us to actually build help agents on our app that effectively knows everything about the applications. So rather than a drop-down menu and help in a traditional way, the user can actually ask the AI agent on the app to say, okay, how do I fill in that field, or what options are available, or how do I go from this screen to another screen? So effectively, AI is there to help you. And the wonderful thing about that is that you can provide your questions in any language to that AI model. So this is quite important. And I think, the big shift that we are seeing is that the shift to conversational UI. And it's, again, something that I'm sharing with you from experience, is that we've all seen, the growth of keyboards. We all use keyboards in our lives for everything. You want to use your computer, okay, where is my keyboard? But with AI first approach, you need to adopt a conversational UI or CUI. When you're designing your apps, when you're designing any AI models, you need to mimic the way that, in a natural way, we interact with each other. As humans, we interact with each other with voice. We don't use keyboards to talk to each other, except that we are distant from each other. So it needs to support voice, and it needs to be multilingual, because that's the basics when it comes to interactions with AI. So as a CUI allows you to treat an app as a human, but with that vast knowledge that AI has, and with those multilingual capabilities that it has. So another key lesson that I can convey is that think about CUI in everything that you develop, and expect that in every AI app that you're seeing, because that is the current basics and is already being used in many of the apps. And of course, in some of the wearable outputs, you can actually talk to, your fitness watch and things like that. So, of course, as I said before, there are other uses of AI, from repetitive tasks and as well that you need to use. Combination of those aspects means that brings human and AI together, both in terms of the apps that are developed, but also interactions with each other. And as I said, from November, for the routine company meetings, or even some of the routine demos, I will not go to the meetings. I will send my avatar. So there are things that you can do with voice that you can't do easily with pre-AI. And it's important to me because when I speak to Italian, Dutch, or Spanish clients, I rather speak to them in the local language. But of course, my Dutch, Italian, or Spanish is not as good, especially I don't speak Dutch at all. But by sending my avatar can speak all of those languages easily, and it will look like me and can do a demo as easily as me. So I think these are the mindset changes that we need to think. When we think about AI, don't think about conventional apps that you've used before. Think differently. Think how AI power can change that. So the next slide, it's about the balance of ethics and innovation when it comes to regulations. And this is very relevant to all of us because obviously all of us in whatever geographies we live in, we are, what we do is governed by the laws of that area. So, and of course, addressing ethical challenges is important. And of course, ethical challenges are not new. So we've been dealing with, data privacy issues, bias in decision-making, GDPR aspects for some time, but they're even more important now with the use of AI. So ethical concerns are magnified. So we need to make sure that we address those and we use AI in a responsible way when we develop applications, when we train our LLM models, to make sure that we don't break any laws. And of course, I mentioned the Amazon case with bias against women in hiring. But in my view, there has to be a balance. And again, if you look at this diagram, you will see that AI is an outlier. So AI actually says far greater focus on ethical use and transparency, but less focus on innovation. And of course, this is a lived experience because I live in EU. And of course, I can see that. And if I just use an analogy of football, many players such as, in US, China, India, and Japan are actually playing in the field of AI, but EU tends to more be a referee and give yellow cards and red cards in terms of who can play and how they can play. And that is not going to benefit EU because it's going to slow down innovation. So there needs to be a balance, and I don't think that balance is there yet. If you look at US, for example, it encourages rapid AI growth. And I know obviously some of you dialed in from North America with fewer regulations, but it's favoring innovation. It could be some potential ethical costs, but the US has made that conscious decision to say, okay, we deal with those. We've got enough regulations, but we're going to major on rapid innovation. And of course, you can see how most of the tech, AI tech, is actually emerging from US. China also believes in rapid AI adoption, but with some greater concerns about some of the privacy concerns that I mentioned as well, because their focus is on national security. India focuses on AI for inclusive growth, but it doesn't have that formalized regulatory framework as yet, because it wants to allow for faster adoption of AI in public services. And Japan and Canada have got a more balanced approach between ethical oversight and particularly in areas such as healthcare and innovation. So every country and region is different, but I think you will see winners and losers in the next 2 or 3 years based on whether they've pivoted more into innovation or pivoted more into regulation. So obviously a balanced approach is key. As I said, the outlier here is EU that focuses more on regulations and less so on innovation. So I think different countries will obviously adjust the position, but that's the assessment that I've done based on also experience as well. And I say that just because we're also trying to move to the US from a product point of view. In fact, we're also exploring India and Canada as well. And also, I haven't got it here, but also Australia and New Zealand. So we are moving into, so again, it's a lived-in experience. So we're moving to locations that favor more innovation. They're not afraid of AI, and AI solutions can prosper. So again, why I'm interested in this slide is because it's almost is a map of where we want to take our product because of greater focus on innovation and maybe a more balanced approach when it comes to regulation, especially with ethical approaches. Now, I've come to the last slide, but there are some very, very important conclusions which summarizes everything that I've said. One is that there is no time to wait for AI to happen. So it's unlike other technologies that people say, okay, let's just wait to see what this industry is going to do. So we will maybe adopt it in a couple of years' time when we have seen some of our competitors doing it. Actually, if you're allowing your competitors to doing it, then you may not exist as a company if you take no step to use AI. So it is urgent. Every company needs to use it, and every individual needs to use it in whatever shape or form, in whatever speed that they want to use it. But it is important that it is recognized that AI is accelerating. As Eric mentioned, I've spent all of my career in tech, but I've never seen a technology that moves at the pace that AI does. Never. And I also use my own lived-in example that we were planning for a 12 and 18 months development, and it ended up to be 6 or 7 months. Again, you don't normally see this in technology. You normally see your timescales increasing. You never see your timescales decreasing. And also some of our newer products that we are developing are even a shorter time frame. So just because AI is improving all the time. The next point is what I've majored on a lot, which is human AI intelligence. I believe in a hybrid human AI intelligence. It is a winning strategy. So it's not just about AI. You need to think about how humans need to interact with AI. Of course, that upskilling that I mentioned is quite key, and we need to think about what things can AI do. And then you need to make those trade-offs in terms of repetitive tasks, or even the extreme case of sending your avatar to a meeting instead of yourself. But these are all possibilities. As I said, it's only in 2 or 3 weeks' time that I'm going to start doing that. A balanced approach between regulations and innovation. We just talked about that, so I'm not going to delve into that more because it's super important because it affects every company in that region. And the next one in the bottom left-hand side is collaboration, not competition. So nobody should think that they are competing with machines, because we will never be able to compete with AI. But it's our ability to adapt to work with AI, which was my previous slide when I showed this a multidimensional learning path. It is the adaptation and mindset change, which is key. And I've seen also my mindset changing and our team changing, that we now think about AI first approach. AI learning journey, as I said, it's not about technology, it's about psychology, and it's back to the cultural aspects and the mindset that I mentioned. And finally, I end with the AI first approach. And AI first approach means really unlearning what we have learned all of our lives and all of our careers, and actually learning that actually, if I was using AI, how would I use it? And please think about conversational UI, because my prediction is that, yes, keyboards may never disappear, but they will disappear as the dominant way for us to, interact with an application, and it will be replaced by voice. So that's a prediction that in 5 years' time, we will not think about keyboards as the main interaction points for applications. And of course, automation, using of agents to do multiple tasks. And it could be, as I said, a simple job of creating your own avatar to attend certain routine meetings. Your avatar that knows everything about, certain topic. It could be basic information about your company, terms and conditions, whatever it may be. We should use that, because that means that humans can do more valuable, things that only humans can do with that ethical judgment and, what only humans can do. And I just end this by saying one other thing, is that there was a product that I wanted to develop at the last year. And I came to the conclusion that as humans, we are far more sort of intelligence than AI can do. And especially when it comes to our own experiences, because I lived in experiences. And I came to the conclusion that I can only use AI as an assistance, not AI as a product. So it became a tool, not a product. So, so that what I learned from that experience is that yes, there are certain things that AI can do that a human cannot do, but there are certain aspects that their lived-in experience is far greater. So I had to concede that for now, and certainly for foreseeable future, that product ambition that I've got is a tool. This is one other product I wanted to develop, which is AI assistance, and we aim to grow that assistance from 10% to 20%, and maybe ultimately it will reach to 100% that AI can own the product, but at the moment is supporting human beings. So with that said, I'm going to stop and really hand over to you, Eric, to maybe manage some of the questions that people may have.
Yeah, Alex, and then I really enjoyed your session. It's truly amazing, and then I enjoyed every bit of it. For me, it was insightful, interesting, and then very, very incredibly useful. So thanks, Alex. So I can see some questions in the chat. If you can open the chat, starting from Sharda.
Okay. Can we start? Yeah.
Yeah, please hold on. Yeah, okay. There are some questions in the chat.
So let me just because I cannot do it while I'm sharing.
Okay,
So
I can read for you.
Yeah. Okay. Just in case I need to go back to any of the slides, but so if you could just read a couple, and if necessary,
Yeah. There's a question from Sharda. So, what are the metrics when it comes to productivity? When we say employee productivity, what is a tangible measure? Would love to get some more details in that.
Yeah, excellent question. Because productivity is not just about cost efficiencies and doing things faster. It's also about a mindset. It's about decisions around that you make around whether you use AI, whether you use a human. It's about your workforce strategy. It's about your operating model. It touches every aspect of the organization. So from a KPI point of view, it could be anything from your ratio of AI to humans for repetitive tasks, because some repetitive tasks still needs to have humans, but the percentage usage of human versus AI. It could be how it affects your operating model in terms of whether you go for devolved operating model or central operating model, because the same AI agents can work both centrally but also coordinate activities locally with other AI agents, which means that you have far more flexibility around your operating model, how you operate. But in every aspect, the common thread is decisions around where you use AI, where you don't use AI, and what percentage. That would be embedded in every aspect of your operating model. And your workforce strategy metrics in terms of where you use AI, where you don't use AI, and how you grow your workforce and how you train your workforce to become more, think about AI, as I said, those mindset aspects. And these are hard measures, because I go back to that 3-tier structure that I put together. How do you measure adaptability? How do you measure creativity? Because those aspects is what makes humans unique, that at the moment AI cannot replace them. So increasing those aspects will help your productivity, because if you're more creative, if you think AI first, then your productivity will go up. But those things, as I said, are much harder to measure. But these are the things that you need to look at in order to see, are we a productive organization? So just to wrap up this question, so as a founder and a CEO of a startup, I always have to make decisions about hiring. My team come to me and say, okay, we need 2 people for this task, whatever it may be. And they've now used to it, and perhaps they don't come to me as often. And I say, okay, well, can we train an AI agent to do that? Can we actually use one of the existing team members, but supported by AI? And how long would it take for us to develop an AI agent to this task? So they've now got it, because actually they answer the questions themselves, because they now figure out we can do some of the things with existing team, or where we need people is for niche skills that are domain skills, business skills, or skills that we don't have as a domain. So it's thinking very differently. That's what creates productivity.
Thanks, Alex. I can see Vinod, your hand raised. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi Rob and hi Alex. Thanks Rob for news. So it's a very quite good session that I really enjoyed. Alex, I have like two questions.
Sure.
One, recently on September 12th, OpenAI has launched O1 Preview and O1 Mini. So can you share some highlights on that? And my second question is that, like, how to evaluate an AI for any business needs. For example, I'm into the airline domain and we have different products. So there are a lot of different AI models are there. So it's very difficult to judge, okay, which AI model is suitable for this particular product. So how to evaluate it? Either to do the POC, because in one of the slides you mentioned that we can do the POC of any of the AI models, but that's where the most of the challenge and resistance that comes from the finance and other leadership team as well.
Yeah, I think let me answer your second question first, because this is a really important one. And I think it's a challenge that every AI expert or any technology expert faces in any organizations. Okay, give me the permission to see how I can use AI and create value. But it's part of the answer is some of the things that I mentioned before, that don't try to boil the ocean. Don't try to sell them or push them towards a big solution. Just try one thing that you can improve. And that could be a POC. I can improve, I don't know, this element of the ticket sales, or I can improve this element of the operational efficiency. Just one thing, that how you can use AI to, and of course, where AI comes really powerful is when it consumes lots of data, lots of information, and it can, based on the right prompts, and it can tell you what the answer is, that maybe traditional AI models, which are more programmatic type solutions, cannot do. And of course, traditional systems cannot do it. So I would say, break down your ambitions of what you're trying to ask the business to do into manageable chunks. Do not go with a big proposal. Just show your idea, your credibility, can-do mindset with a very small subset. And in fact, as I said, even if you can't get hold of the data from that function, let's say it's ticketing, then try to use some publicly available data to prove what it could do. Because obviously, once you feed the data, the accurate data, it can only become far more accurate. So this is a challenge, I think, for every organization, when there are experts, that they can see the opportunity, but then getting through that opportunity. So that's lesson one. POC, short, quick. Even if your ambitions is high, you can see the huge opportunity, but start small. And don't try to boil the ocean and go for bigger things, because business need to be convinced. They need to see the real value, and you can show that value even with a small POC, with a small subset. The second thing is, try to both insist when you see a solution, or if you're developing a solution yourself, insist on explainable AI. Yeah, how did AI make that decision? Because they, the mystery, if you like, is that you need to, as an AI expert, you need to demystify how AI is doing it. And you need to be able to use your storytelling techniques to explain this to your business counterpart. Because if you say, well, it just does it because it's AI, that's not good enough. So I recently saw a tool that for a very complex business process, which all of my career, I've always wondered how this tool, previous incarnation of this tool, could do, who make certain decisions. And this new version of this tool showed exactly how AI was making the decisions. So the brain was making, I'm picking the stock from this warehouse, not this warehouse, for this reason. So insist on explainable AI, which means that when you build an AI, try to create that explainability, because that's another way that businesses are going to believe what it can do. So two aspects: small, start small, and then explainable AI. So in terms of the new, so first question, in terms of new models that have just in September become available. But certainly we know from just looking at it very briefly is that they are better in logic, not necessarily better at the domain and the speed of coming up with answers, but they're better at the logic, and also better at some of the programming languages as well. So these are the two things that have stood out for me when I quickly looked at it, but we are still evaluating it. So when we see a new model comes along, we experiment with it, but it's at least 2 months before we actually use it, just because there are many things for us to consider, especially when it comes to product development. So we don't just use it. So we play with it, we use it, we ask other experts in our as part of our partnership groups that they have experimented with it, but we don't just quickly adopt it. So unfortunately, I won't be able to give you a lot of data points on that. But I would say all of these new models are always making an improvement on the old model. As I said, AI is only at its worst today. It can only get better and better every day. And of course, we know how powerful it is.
Thanks, Alex. Anyone wants to have any questions? Anyone has any question? You want to ask any questions? Maybe you can take maximum one more question. Okay, Prabha, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Alex. So thanks for sharing a very valuable session. Just adding to the previous questions and the context, right? So when we are dealing with enterprises, so the very adaptive change in this ecosystem. So how an enterprise can quickly adapt on it, or like you said, we have to wait for 2 months for the production rollout, isn't it? So how do we determine it? Because if you see, there is a very rapid change and evolving, and the UX that we are also building on top of for any application with the AI, that will also get changed on each responses that is making by each of these AI models. So we have to undergo the complete circle again, right? Call it as a DevOps, MLOps, or AIOps, right? So have you seen any of these situations, how companies adapting?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This is a big challenge. And it's a big challenge because unlike every technology that we have ever experienced in our careers, this technology is make future development shorter, quicker, more efficient, and actually changes both your front end, your back end, and obviously the codes that you've even written to for AI in terms of prompting and so on. I'll give you one example. This is wasn't our use case, but one of our partners was telling us that a mere 6 months ago, a company came to them and asked for a piece of development, and they gave a quotation like 6 months effort, and they said today none of that 6 months effort would be required because the current models provide everything that the client wanted to do 6 months ago. So that's how scary it is, that you could be writing code or a client could make a decision around a solution, and 6 months later it's out of the box. So it is a challenge, which means that, again, back to what I said before, the only way to mitigate against this is an agile mindset, that organizations need to adapt and be mindful that they cannot take 6 months to make a decision on a product. They cannot take just long-term decision to say we're going to build this 12 and 18 months project. You need to break it down into smaller chunks. So agile is even more important in the context of AI than any other time, which also means the mindset needs to change. You do tactical POCs first, you experiment with the new models before you then do proper deployment of those models. And that's why for us, the 2 months to 8 weeks is where we do tactical deployment. We play with it, but we don't deploy it in production because we need to know it. We need to know that. So, Eric knows that I'm a big advocate of agile, big advocate of, autonomy for the teams. And more than any other times, this is now important because the teams need to be trusted to, work with these models and experiments, because, you're talking about 6 and 9 months time savings in your development if you're allowed to experiment with these new models. But of course, you need to experiment in a safe way as well. Of course, we don't want to use companies, enterprises' data in an unsafe way. So one thing I would say, because I know we have come into the end, let's not, end this discussion at the end of this webinar. Please connect with me. Let's, continue the discussions because we are learning every minute of every day, right? And you are learning, within your enterprise, within your experiences. I think it's the, combination of the experiences that we have, which is important because everything that we do now. So, for example, the advisory service that I mentioned earlier today, we are not doing it ourselves because we don't have all the knowledge across all the domains, across all the LLMs. We're doing it with other experts across the globe, experts that now, are also AI practitioners. And of course, you're also AI practitioners in different domains, different experiences. Let's solve these things together because trying to solve it, like before in one company, we just solve it, is no longer possible because of the rapid pace of evolution of this technology. So you're not alone in what you describe, but it's important that we connect and we stay connected so we share these experiences because this thing is moving at such a rapid pace, which is fantastic to be involved with it for all of us. But at the same time, we don't want to be getting disappointed with it because if you backed a type of LLM and backed a solution and realize halfway through the program that all of it is now out of the box, then that's not a good outcome.
I think this is very insightful, Alex. Thanks for re-emphasizing on some of the very important elements, like you touched upon adaptability, something like continuous learning and upskilling, which is definitely is what makes impactful in these changes. And then, like we also experimenting with different models, different things. Like you summarize it very well, which is like a 3-step process. Probably starting with proof of concept, followed by some kind of a focused experimentation, and then scaling across the organization. I think that is very practical. I think that is what many of them has to adopt in case they need to be successful. And then we are working in different industries and then seeing a lot of transformation across all that industries. And one important element you said is mindset shift, right? Because that mindset shift is the important element which you need to focus and work closely with leaders in this. And then I'm definitely looking forward for the day where we can send our avatars to some of the routine meetings, which will make more productive. Thanks once again for all your expertise and sharing with us, Alex.
My pleasure. And I think you summarized, the talk so well. So thank you also for highlighting the key points. And again, I emphasize our experiences in different industries, in different situations, only becomes more powerful when we share that. And I think I thanks Eric for organizing such an event and organizing this group, because this is more important than any other time when we can share our experiences, because there was nothing that I heard in terms of questions that was new, but the answers are so complex. And that's why we need to, share our experiences so that we can solve them together more than any other time. That togetherness is very important. So I leave with one last comment. AI is not about technology, it's about psychology.
Psychology, yeah. Thanks.
Amazing, amazing. Guys, you all don't know any idea about how busy Alex is. So he's completely booked till next mid-November. And when I spoke to him, luckily, fortunately, this is the only day and slot he was available, and then he immediately accepted. So Alex, I'm truly lots of for words to express my gratitude to you. So I know how busy you are. So thank you so much for accepting my request. And then it's really great start for us also to motivate. Now I can see a lot of feedback with people sending, please allow continue this. That's really motivating us, Alex. And I know how you're a great storyteller. I used to tell my friends we had to learn a lot from Alex about mainly on how to express the data in AA more than like Alex explained. So thanks, Alex, for that. And then we'll stay in touch. And definitely we'll stay in touch. And thank you so much. And thanks, guys, for all Brain community who joined today. So and thank you so much for your time. Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys. Bye.
Have a great day, great evening. Thank you so much for your time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take care. See you all. Bye. Bye.
Well.